All right, I'm going to go live. Hey, what is going on, YouTube? It's the brain of the mainframe, Nile Scala, here for another exciting episode of Crowdfunding Comics with my pal, my best friend, the floating tiny hat in the screen, the invisible man, Mr. Billy Tucci.
What's up now?
What's going on, buddy? How you been?
I don't know. I'm just having fun. I'm excited.
Did you have a little silly sauce with your nuggets?
Little silly sauce, having a Guinness. Salute, my friend. Slanja.
Yes, salute to another good show.
So how are you, buddy? Well, let's get right to it. This is our 25th episode with our guests. We've been doing this for about 2 months now. And I'm really excited about it because this is something, the subject matter is something that's very near and dear to my heart. So I would, I guess you could say that we've hit the quarter century mark. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would say we've done it.
So in our we're going to get off with let's get it off with a bang, shall we? With the story of bombing Betty, medieval times, and evil Nazis who must get their, what is it, their comeuppance, I guess? So basically, this is a story. This is a story of, we're going to do this right now for crowdfunding shows for Flying Fortress. It's by Eric Weathers, who is our guest tonight. He is a comic story, but it's 1943. B-17s are on a bombing run over Germany. One of them gets shot down. The bombing Betty gets shot down by an experimental German jet, and it crash lands in medieval times.
How awesome is that?
How awesome is that? I mean, let's talk. Holy shit! The only thing that make that cooler if there's some Nazis are riding dinosaurs. So, but let's welcome Eric. Eric Weathers, is he here?
Yes,
I'm here.
Mr. Eric.
Salute.
And cheers.
Yes.
Salute.
Cheers.
Probably the busiest man in comics. Salute. Cheers. And we have Frank Amazing is off camera. Can we get a cheers from Frank?
Cheers from Frank. He's saluting. We should have just got his arm to come through.
Welcome, Eric. The way we do this is our show. We try to. The idea is for it to run 45 minutes.
Okay.
We always go over that
With a 15-minute Q&A.
And I know that you're probably one of the busiest men in comics, with not only with your own creator-owned projects, but you're also working on a ton of other projects. So
Yes,
when it's time for you to go, you're like, dude, guys, I got to go. All right?
Yeah.
But we'll try to keep it to an hour or so. I'm calling you. I'm coming from my drawing board because I'm working on a cover, and we're all gearing up to San Diego. And there's just a ton of stuff to do. So I think, Nile, up until San Diego, I might be the majority of my crowdfunding comic episodes. You'll be coming from this view.
Yeah.
And I'll try to clean it up. But anyway, congratulations, Eric, on your super successful Indiegogo project. I mean, you've got 19 days left, but you've already blew past the $10,000 mark. And welcome. And for those out there who may not be familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I guess most people might know me as a letterer for several comic projects of recent note. Jawbreakers, Graveyard Shift. It's recently announced that I'll be lettering Red Rooster from the Brightwisers.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Thank you.
Great property.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one. That one's going to be a whole lot of fun.
And nicer people in the world. You could never meet nicer people, too.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful human beings. I just got off the phone with them earlier today. I should be expecting a lot of work coming down here very soon. Yeah. So
ask him about his Sasquatch encounter.
The what?
Sasquatch encounter. Ask him about his Bigfoot encounter.
They have their own Bigfoot encounter, huh?
Yeah.
Excellent.
So so all right. So what are some of the other projects you're working on?
Things that are funding right now. Doom Kicker, Earthworm Jim, Gunship Thunder Punch, something that's about to come out with Richard Meyer's You Boy Zach's Devil Dog, and a book called a little short called Desolation Wave. I just wrapped those up one of them today and the other one at the end of last week.
So you're lettering all these books. How long does it take you to letter a book?
Uh, well, it depends on the length of the book, obviously. Earthworm Jim's going to take a while. It's 160 pages.
Wow. Oh,
So, but I could do. I mean, if it again, it depends on the book and the amount of detail that's involved in the lettering. I could do like your standard lettering, 22, 24 page comic, probably in a day.
Yeah.
If I didn't have any distractions and I could focus on it, but the more involved, if there's a lot of various, like with Graveyard Shift, there were a lot of different word balloons for different characters and lots of sound effects that can slow down the process. So, yeah.
So
excellent.
what got your start? I mean, how did you get into the comic book field? I mean, you're working with these great creators. I mean, what's your origin story? Where did you become?
Well, it started way back in 2009 is sort of when this whole thing kind of kicked off. It actually started with the book that I'm talking about today, Flying Fortress. Just some friends and I and hanging out, and we're like, I'd always wanted to be a comic book artist, and we were like, hey, we should do a book, because what else are we going to do? And so we threw on this idea for Flying Fortress, and then by 2011, one of the co-creators, Andy Moore, was like, hey, by the way, we got a convention table. And I'd never even visited a convention. So he's like, we got this table in April. We don't have a book yet, so you better get busy. Let's get something done. And that sort of was him pushing me out the door. Like, here, you're doing it. We're going to make this happen. And then over those several years, for about 6 or 7 years, we worked on Flying Fortress in our off time. And, and some freelance stuff here and there in between. And the whole lettering thing sort of kicked off, I'd say, in 2016 with some small freelance jobs. And then Graveyard Shift was my first big break.
Nice. Now, how did you get into comics? Like, did you draw when you were a kid and stuff like that? Right? Comics? Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up tracing out of comics, copying comics. I was never precious about my books. I'm still not precious about my books. I'm ready to just tear into them and pour over the artwork. So for me, it was like, I grew up in the 90s, so it was the best time for me for comics, because it was Jim Lee was everywhere, and that's all I wanted to be was Jim Lee. So it was tearing out pages of X-Men and tracing over them and copying those, and the cartoons were big at the time, and my friends and I were all into that. And it was just a matter of like, it was always there, of this sort of desire to be a comic book creator. And honestly, outside of silly childish ones, I don't remember ever wanting to do anything else.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
Now with the drawing though, I mean, are you still doing that? I mean, or actually better yet, so you start off with the drawing and then you got into lettering. So are you still drawing, or do you like lettering better?
I kind of like, yes, I'm still drawing. I drew all of this Flying Fortress book, and I have more to come. Not Flying Fortress, but more books to come. We could talk about that in a little bit. But
awesome.
The drawing is never off the table. It's always something I'm doing, and I feel like I'm finally there. You know how that is when you're finally there, and then then a year later you're like, I wasn't ready. But drawing is always going to be there, and like I said, there are a lot of books I have in the future, and but lettering is just something that I did on Flying Fortress, because I did everything. It was I co-wrote it with a friend, and he inked a couple of pages early on, but after that, I did pencils, inks, letters, colors, pre-press. I mean, we did everything for 8 issues. So I just when it got to the lettering stage of the process, it was relaxing. So I sort of fell in love with it. Honestly, it's one of my favorite parts of the making a comic book. And when the opportunity came to letter somebody else's book, I jumped at the chance. Okay. And it's paid off, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you're everywhere. I mean, it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Nile.
Hang on.
I keep asking all the questions, and I want
What are
you
you
to.
talking about? I'm asking all these questions. I'm just setting some. Hang on. Give me a second here.
Well,
All right. So did you go to any schooling for any of the work that you do? Did you take any graphic design courses? I mean, how did you go? Your art. Are you completely self-taught, or is it the graphic design stuff? Did you do any of that education?
I would say mostly self-taught illustration. Just like I said, copying out of comics. I did on the wall over here. I have I took the Kubert correspondence course for penciling.
Oh, nice.
The one that you would mail it back and
Yep.
forth. Like 4 or 5 or 6 assignments.
Yeah.
So I have some original Joe Kubert sketches in my stash because he would draw over it with a tracing paper.
That is so cool.
So that I'll cherish forever.
Wow.
So I did take graphic design when I was in college, but as far as just general illustration, it's always been pursuing it on my own. I never took any formal training or education outside of that mail-in course.
All right. What if you don't mind me asking, what software are you using to letter? For any aspiring letterers out there.
I would say the best software to get is Adobe Illustrator. You can use Photoshop. I've used it in the past. I'm using it currently with Earthworm Jim. You can use Clip Studio Paint. I tried it once and it was uncomfortable. So I stick with Illustrator because it's my go-to. I know all the tricks. I know, I can whip out a page a whole lot faster in there than anywhere else. But yeah, I would say check Illustrator. That's pretty much the industry standard these days. So if you find any tutorials or any of mine, they're all going to be Illustrator related.
Okay. I love Illustrator.
Yeah.
Now, are you, with your Illustrator stuff, are you doing the whole Adobe suite? Did you invest in that whole thing? Because I find that software is just, everything kind of, marries to itself well. They all accompany them. Or are you just staying solely on just kind of keeping it within the two?
No, I have a friend and we share the suite because you can have 2 logins.
Yeah.
For this, and he's a big time designer, so he's like, we need everything. We do videos together. I'll edit videos and he'll shoot the video and I'll do the post processing and editing and stuff. And so we just kind of need all this stuff to work. So yeah, we have the whole suite. I don't use everything, but mostly Illustrator, Photoshop, and Premiere.
Gotcha. There's a little fluff in that package, but anywho, so we know what you do. You've pretty much handled everything. You're a Swiss Army knife of talent here. So what? And this comes from Black Wolf Senpai. What was your inspiration for Flying Fortress?
Well, like I said, there were a couple of friends and I, Andrew Walker and Andy Moore, and we were just sitting around we loved World War II stories, and it was really big at the time for us. We were just watching Band of Brothers constantly, Saving Private Ryan, all these, and even a lot of the older war movies. We just enjoyed that whole era. We'd play Call of Duty, and the zombies genre was also big for us at that age. And so we wanted to do this idea of sort of a zombie outbreak set in World War II.
Nice.
And so we were thinking okay, well, I don't want the heroes to have it easy, because if he's in a platoon, they're going to have access to ammo and heavy weapons, and that'll be too easy. So I want to have them outnumbered and outgunned. So well, what if they're pilots and they crash and they have to, they get surrounded by zombies? That was like the kernel of the idea. And it very much evolved from that. And the zombie thing sort of course corrected through the series. We didn't want to just be a zombie book. We sort of took the idea of that and made it, because they, we'll get into the story in a little bit, but they crash in the Middle Ages, but it's in an alternate dimension. So the Black Plague there and the doctors there try to cure it, but they actually make these people stronger. So they're not zombies, they're not undead. And then the Nazis use that to build an army.
Wow,
and
that's fantastic.
And well, I mean, yeah, that's sort of kind of how we got the inspiration. It was just sort of like, we like zombies, we like World War II, so let's put it together. Let's make that peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
There you go, and add a little fluff. So, yeah. If you guys don't mind, normally kind of go on this, but since you were kind of talking into this, if you don't mind, I'd love to show the video for your Indiegogo, just to give the guy,
sure.
the viewers out there a visual of what you've created. So, guys, I'm going to premiere the video on our show for Flying Fortress Remastered.
The year is 1943. War rages across the globe. Captain Stephen Reynolds and the crew of the B-17 bombing Betty are tasked with a secret mission to bomb Hitler at his hidden base. After successfully dropping their payload, the victory is short-lived when they are shot down by an experimental enemy fighter and crash land in the Middle Ages. After losing one of their own to the evil Infinite Reich, our crew finds allies in unexpected places. Using a newfound technology, they must do what they can to survive, and more importantly, find their way back home. Flying Fortress Remastered is a book 8 years in the making, and it collects the entire story written and drawn between 2011 and 2017. The story is finished, but it just needs a few updates to present it to the world. Over 200 pages of story, plus an expansive section in the back with supplemental material. Updated designs, art fixes, and brand new lettering come together for one giant book. You are not gonna want to miss this one. Back it today and help this book take to the skies.
That's awesome, man.
So great. Art looks great. Lettering's not too shabby either, buddy.
No,
Thank you.
It looks great. I got a question. So I'm looking at some of the the Nazi soldiers there, and I noticed since you mentioned the Black Plague, and I've a love for this point in time of the Plague Doctor, the beak on that was that an inspiration of the Plague Doctor and kind of all that tying in?
Yeah, so that's sort of like the stormtrooper of our story is this. We call them plague soldiers, and they have the sort of Nazi helmet and gas mask, but we gave that long beak, that long snout of the Plague Doctor, and it's just a really cool, striking image. It's a lot of fun to draw. Yeah, and I just felt like we needed to have that enemy army, and it just fit perfectly.
Yeah, no, it does. It does.
It does. It really does.
It does. I love it. I love it. And the art's great, man. Even the drawing of the planes and all that stuff. I mean, you did a phenomenal job on this.
Thank you.
Now, are you Warbird? Are you into World War? You say you watch Band of Brothers, things like that. Are you into Warbirds at all, or aviation, World War II aviation and stuff?
Yeah, I would say I'm into it, but I don't have a lot of knowledge of it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not like super deep into it, but I definitely I'll go to an air show and enjoy myself. Yeah. And and anytime when I drew the cover for this, it'd been a couple of years since I did a painting of a Mustang recently, but it's been a while since I put pencil to paper on a plane, and that was a lot of. I like drawing them a whole lot. So as far as if you want to talk about altitude and rate of fire on, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah. No, I love drawing them too. I really do. Now, you had you've done several Kickstarter projects as well. And now that you're putting together the remastered edition, again, we're going to get it really into the story and everything next. But can we expect you to put Flying Fortress on the remastered edition on Kickstarter as well? Have you thought?
I hadn't thought about that. I don't know if I need to. Do I need to?
No, it doesn't hurt. Everybody deserves a little Flying Fortress, and what
I guess that's true.
There are certain people that will only buy from Indiegogo, and there's certain people that only buy from Kickstarter. It seems,
That's true. That's true.
And why not throw it out there? And even it doesn't cost you anything. The book is done. Even and a 2-week campaign, it gets you out there, and maybe you make yourself a little more to put back into the book and stuff, and raise a little more for you guys for all the work you put into it.
That's a good idea because I do plan on overprinting anyways. So a short campaign on Kickstarter to get a different audiences, something to consider. Definitely gonna write that down.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I did it. Everyone knows I started on Kickstarter first, and then I went to Indiegogo. I was talking to Ethan. Ethan's like, "You got to do Indiegogo." So I went Indiegogo, and we blew our Kickstarter numbers away with Indiegogo. But we also had, though, our Kickstarter numbers were fantastic too. Yeah. So why not do both? It seems I like to think of it as a store, and say, say you make pillows, and you want both, you know,
You want
home.
to be in Target and Walmart.
Yeah, you want
Yeah.
well, and Target. So why not?
Yeah.
And there are certain people that only go to Target, say.
That's
You
a
know,
good point.
maybe they've
Yeah.
missed it. Oh, I missed it, and I know it's in demand with Indiegogo, which is great. But we're going to go Indiegogo first with She when I do Return of the Warrior in August. I mean, but I think we're going to do. I think we're going to do both campaigns too, because why not? Like
Are you going to do them at the same time?
no, we're going to do one and one. We're going to do one and one. I was
'Cause-
talking. Yeah, Ethan had said that if I that was my grand scheme. Like, I'll do them both, and we'll live on Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Yeah.
But Ethan was saying like, oh, you might confuse people. They might get confused.
That's true. Well, we had originally done a Kickstarter for Flying Fortress Volume 1, which was the first 4 chapters.
Yeah.
And that we did do on both on Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Yeah.
And we back then we played into the Kickstarter algorithm and just put our goal at $1 because we were going to print it anyways.
Yeah.
So we got we only made like $1,000, but it was enough to print a few books for a convention.
Yeah.
The artwork was, it was all sweat equity. And then we did the Indiegogo. We set that pretty much that amount as the goal on Indiegogo and made like $300. But that was like 2012. Nobody knew about crowdfunding.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any sort of an audience or any sort of, social media presence or anything to let anybody know this thing existed.
Yeah.
So it's
well,
a different
you do
time.
now.
Yeah.
Now, what
It's
it
not
means when you're done with the crowdfunding end of it, for people out there that are still going to try to get your book, are you going to be offering it on like an online store? Is it going to be offered digitally? I mean, you guys have any plans?
Well, we probably have a digital download at some point. I mean, we have one on the campaign. And it depends on how much I print. I know that you can ship books to Amazon and then they will just fulfill. Like if people that do like reselling of items or something, like they buy like a pallet of, screwdrivers from an auction and then they just ship them to Amazon and they'll sell them for them. So you can do that with your books too.
Oh, wow.
So I may do that because I'm going to have an ISBN on this monster. And that's an option I'm looking at right now. I'm so much in campaign mode that I haven't taken the time to look into the future and see what that looks like. But in the past, we have offered the book just on our own website.
Okay.
And shipped them out that way.
All right. Nice.
Very nice. Can you tell us about your involvement with Offworlder?
Yeah, I'm lettering Offworlder. I'm lettering all of Cautionary's books. So I started with Ravage.
Yeah.
Kill All Men. I've got Offworlder. Florida Man's coming. So yeah, that's a lot of fun working with Ben. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. How did you meet them? How did you get involved with Ben and the guys?
It was when I got hired on Graveyard Shift. I think John Malin had put in a tweet in a DM thread with a bunch of the Comicsgate guys, like, "Hey, I got a letterer. These are his rates. This is what he's working on Graveyard Shift. He's good." And then, because I got messages from a couple of guys, and Ben was one of them. So just sort of, I have John to thank for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're spread all over the place, which is great because you said you didn't have name recognition, but now you sure do.
Yeah.
Now that you're working on all these projects, so that's kind of cool that you have that you are out there and that you're working on several different projects at once. And like I said, I don't know how much sleep you get a night.
I get enough.
Yeah.
I crash out on Sundays. Sundays I'm pretty much dead, but the rest of the week I can survive.
Awesome.
So what can you tell us about Flying Fortress?
Yeah, well, you saw the video. It's B-17 crew. They are the best in their unit, in their class, in their wing, in their bomber group, and they are tasked with one final mission, the last one before they get to punch out and go home. And they get a new plane. Bombing Betty gets ripped apart, and they have to get this new plane. And they're unsure of it because it's a new bird. Yeah. And so they get tasked on the secret mission to go bomb Hitler, and everything's successful. But after the bombs get dropped, they crash. They get shot down by an experimental jet fighter and crash land in the Middle Ages. And that's where the whole story sort of unravels. The crew, obviously, when they crash there, they don't know they're in the Middle Ages. They think they're in the Black Forest of Germany. And they soon discover they're sort of scattered, a group of them here, a group of them there as they bailed out. Some of them discover a castle that is not dormant but active, and some others are found by an archer by the name of Mason, who sort of lets them know, hey, what's going on here? Yeah, the Nazis are here, but they're doing some crazy stuff.
So how do they, without saying too much, how do they get to the Middle Ages? Did they crash through a portal? Did the Germans create some type of like dome that's like a time portal?
Essentially they crash through a portal, and that's how that happens is revealed obviously in the story. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a I think in 1936, if I'm remembering right, maybe 33. There's sort of, we have our Roswell of what, 47. There was supposedly a UFO crash in Germany in like 33 or 36, and they had this in the Black Forest. So we sort of set our lore, so to speak, around that supposed event. Okay. Because there's always this conspiracy stuff about the Nazis having UFO technology and stuff. So we sort of grabbed that and really kind of ran with it in our own direction. So they get this technology and are able to open these portals.
Wow. Nice. That's such a great concept, man. I really I dig it. Like, I want to read the book. This is like
1964,
Yeah.
I love what you're doing because I just love that you're making comics fun again, Yeah. And it's pure entertainment. It's escapism. That's what's so great about comics. You could do anything. You make a comic book about anything.
You really can.
Just put it on paper. I mean, it's a lot of work, obviously, but you could do the most fantastical things, and it's so great to see someone actually doing that and having fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and as we were working on this, it was very much like we were taking influences from movies we loved. Mm-hmm. So there's, I like to describe it as Indiana Jones meets Memphis Belle meets Stargate.
Nice.
So that's a good mashup there, I think.
It is. Now so this is the remastered. So this is Flying Fortress Remastered. So you've tried crowdfunding this prior, correct?
Yes. Well, we had sort of what do you call it? Self-funded pretty much the whole thing. I would just draw it just for free, because it was the project that I wanted to do. We never really pursued any publishing or anything. It was just we wanted to make our own comic. Mm-hmm. And so we would pay for the printing, and we'd go to the shows, and we'd sell the books and original pages and just sort of do it that way. And it took a long time to get through it, but we finally did. By mid 2017, I think we had finally done our last printing of Volume 2 with the whole story, and the remastering is just going through, and there are a few things that I wanted to fix in the artwork. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of 180-degree rule things I need to go back and fix that I wasn't aware of when I was a younger artist. Oh yeah. I'm gonna re-letter the whole thing.
Would you mind explaining that? Because we have a lot of people, a lot of young artists,
sure,
that are on the show. Explain that.
Let me see if I can do this justice. So basically, if you are the cameraman, as the artist, you never want to go beyond 180 degrees of a scene. You don't want to move your camera more than 180 degrees, because then the characters start changing the side of the panel they're on, and then it can get confusing as to who's, why did they switch? Are they walking? Are they, what happened here? So it's a visual way to say this guy's always going to be on the left on this page, and this guy's always going to be on the right. And it's just so you don't, you can really play with it because there's, worm's eye view, bird's eye view, and all of that. But if you start breaking that 180 degree spin, then it can get confusing to look at.
Yep. Excellent. Okay, so you decided to time travel the group, into medieval times, and that really is a unique time frame. And was it so why did you decide? Was it the plague? What exactly was it that made you want to go there?
I'm not sure. I think it might have just been one of those you're sitting and spitballing, and it was just, wouldn't it be cool if? And I just think that it's hard to remember all the details, but I think that was just kind of how it ended up. Was like, wouldn't it be cool if they just kind of ended up in, like, they crashed to a castle, but it's an active castle. There are knights there, and they have to figure out, hey, what the heck? How the heck did we get here? So it was really just writing one of those books that we would want to read.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah. That's a great answer, bro. That's a great answer.
So I got a couple images here. So this is the main cover for the book, and this one you drew.
Yeah, I drew this, and just a few weeks ago now and I got it colored by Kyle Ritter, and he put the magic touch on it, I must say.
Yeah. He's fantastic.
And then you have a this image here. Now I wasn't sure if this is a cover or a page from the book, but
this is neither.
Oh, okay.
This is fan art.
Fan art.
I think that is what I was talking about it today. I was drawing my Vampirella She cover not an hour ago, and I looked at that, and I think that has to be one of the most dynamic pieces of war art or comic art I've ever seen in my life. I am astonished by the composition of it. Just unbelievable. It's just, I mean, it looks like it's telling so many crazy stories. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, is the B-17 on fire?
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, and he's burning, blazing away, and you see another B-17 going down in flames. You see the ME-109, which is probably a Gustav, but that's why I call it an ME-109.
Yeah.
Forget my stupid stuff. That's things I'm into. Freaking by. You know what I mean? Like, you got some pretty talented fans, I'll tell you that.
No kidding. This is Ted Lehman. I was, prepping the campaign for a while, a couple of months, saying, hey, it's coming, sign up for the mailing list. And I got this DM on Twitter from this guy named Ted. And he was like, hey, I'm excited for Flying Fortress. Would you like some fan art to maybe help out the campaign? And he didn't even have a scanner. He sent me a phone photo of it. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, of course. And I talked to him about, like, he mailed it to me. So I have the piece behind me. It's in a top loader behind me. Yeah. I still have to. I don't know if I think I might have to keep it because it's beautiful.
Yeah. It is.
And then I was like, I got to make this a print. So he said that would be fantastic. So we have it as a print. If we can get to 12,000, every physical backer will get this print at 11 by 17 print.
Yeah, wow. That you got. I'm gonna get that print. I mean, your art is gorgeous too. It's just there's just something so special about it. And
it's beautiful.
Which is kind of cool. What I learned too is to have other artists do covers and stuff for you. And I mean, that could be your Kickstarter exclusive cover.
Well, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought. Yeah, Kickstarter exclusive cover. There you go. I got to write that down.
Yeah, it's got its own exclusive cover and stuff. And
yeah, and the other thing with getting another artist.
Sorry.
The other thing with getting another artist on board, even if they do like a pinup or a print, is they're gonna bring in their audience too. So people that wouldn't even have known about Flying Fortress are now like, hey, what's this this guy's doing?
Yeah.
So it's all good, I think.
Yeah. Now, this next image we have here, which is basically the image that's on the side of the B-17, is this another one of your pieces?
Yeah, that's my piece there. That's Bombing Betty. In the lore of the story, Captain Stephen Reynolds had named the plane after his wife, as many of our airmen did back in the day. So that's Betty Reynolds, I guess you could say. And so he named the plane after her, and that's her ready to bomb Hitler.
Yes.
And they did a damn good job of it, didn't they?
They did too. So let's get into a little bit of your campaign. I mean, what can everyone out there that hasn't backed, and we're getting a bunch of messages up here that they've either backed it or they're backing it now or what have you. I mean, what can they expect from this campaign? As I'm going to scroll through here. Just give us an idea of some of the rewards, the perks, things that are coming to your backers.
Sure. everything 50 and above. So the featured perk is set at $50, and if you open that, you'll see what it. I guess the image shows you what it is, but everything at 50 and above is going to get 2 prints along with the book. The book is going to be over 200 pages, and as I said before, we had already completed it, so it's ready to go. I just have to do some fixes. Art-wise, I'm not going into as much detail as Art T. Bear is on black and white. I don't have the time. But I'm going to re-letter it as well, so it all has sort of a cohesive readability. At $50, you're going to get the book signed, plus a print of the cover, plus a top secret print, which I still haven't announced yet, and I need to. But we're working behind the scenes on what that top secret print will be, and that's the featured perk. Below that, we have digital. It's higher price point than what people are used to seeing for digital. Before the campaign launched, I was talking with other creators that have been doing campaigns, and some people say no digital, some people say yes digital, but you don't get a lot from it, or it can get people to not actually back a physical book, and you might lose money because what's that money go towards? Maybe shipping, or maybe printing, but if it's priced low enough, you don't make enough for it to really matter. So I said, okay, I'll be the guinea pig here. I'll price it as if the book were full price on the shelf for $30. $35 you get it signed. I can't sign a digital copy. So I took a crack at it. Well, we'll see how it goes by the end of it, but it's a full 200 plus, almost 250 page book. So yeah.
That's really good, Nile. That's a really good subject matter for an upcoming show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that is really there's a lot in there, because there are I heard arguments that some backers only want digital, and some backers only want physical. And another reason why we did this was I had a couple of messages come in before the campaign saying, "I'm in Australia. Are you going to have a digital copy? I'm in Russia. The shipping is too much or too unreliable." So the idea being, you can buy a video game off the shelf at Walmart for $60, or you can buy it digitally off of the PlayStation for $60. It's the same product.
Yeah.
So
that's a great idea. I mean, Eric, would you mind coming on to discuss that? We have a show dedicated to digital comics.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we ran Flying Fortress as a webcomic way back in the day. So yeah, I have some experience in that field.
Great. Well, there are Eisner Awards now for webcomics.
Yeah.
Digital comics. So that's thank you. Terrific. Regarding the name, great name. Great name.
Thank you.
And I guess for the obvious reasons, why did you choose the Flying Fortress, the B-17? Why did you choose that as opposed to, say, Liberator with a B-24? Like, why the B-17?
It came down pretty simply to Andy Moore, one of the co-creators. His grandfather flew a B-17.
Wow.
He didn't go into battle. He was training on them in 1945. So he lucked out. He didn't have to go on dangerous bombing runs. But yeah, he got to, I think, I may be getting this wrong, but I believe he was the navigator. And for those of you that in the audience or that don't know, a B-17 has had a crew of 10 guys. And the smallest guy got put in that little ball on the bottom. And the smartest guy was either on the bombardier sights or on the navigation table. So so he his grandfather, I believe it was navigator. I may be misremembering that, but yeah, he was like, it's got to be B-17. And we also have a P-38 Lightning in our story.
Yes.
And that's his favorite plane. And so he was, I guess he was in charge of what planes were put in the book. But and we threw in the Horton 229. So we really play with the timeline. It is not our World War II. Obviously, Hitler gets killed in 1943. So in this version, like D-Day never happened, and we didn't need to do that because essentially that's not where our story goes. But it is. They do find out that, oh, by the way, you guys won the war for us.
Yeah.
You just happen to land in an alternate dimension and don't get to come home and celebrate.
Well,
so
I got to tell you, I love this. I loved Inglourious Bastards. I thought, I think Tarantino is a genius. He's one of the few guys, aside from maybe Spielberg, a few other that has like, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing it. No studio interference to mess with his art. And I loved Inglourious. I just love that. I love alternative timelines. I love alternative dimensions. Like, I love that film, The Final Countdown.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the scene where where the two Zeros are flying, and all of a sudden they strafe the boat with a senator on it, and all of a sudden here comes two Tomcats F-14s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Beautiful.
And the jet Zero's like, oh my, what the hell is it? You know what I mean? These jet fighters and they smoke them. You know what I mean? The F-14s just smoke them, and I just love that. I've always been so fascinated by all that.
Yeah, there's a lot that we can play with if we ever do a future release of this. That sort of thing is way more a reality. We have a bit of that, right? Because the Horton 229 was a jet, and nobody had ever seen anything like that before. This flat, thin, boomerang looking thing flying around, and it's a big part of our story. In fact, there was a. You know what? I won't say that because I think it's important to the story. Never mind.
So what's your favorite plane from World War II?
Okay. I'm partial to the Mustang, but the FU Corsairs silhouette alone is gorgeous.
Bro, look at this.
I'm with you, man.
Watch it.
I'm with you. That is my plane, the F4U Corsair. Uh-oh.
F4 Corsair.
What?
That's it.
Beautiful.
Gull wings.
Right over my
Beautiful.
desk. And he's coming in. If you look up here, I'll show it. There's a Japanese Zero over there by the She poster. And if I can show you the Japanese Zero, the pilot, if I can do it. My friend Damo put like he made little eyes, like they're popping out of his head like cartoon eyes. and you know what? I'm gonna take a picture of it. I gotta show you. Where am I?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I gotta take.
Are those the 21st century?
Yeah.
Are they?
A bunch of them.
That's awesome.
Picture. There he is right there.
Yeah, I just have the little corgi die-cast ones here. Like here's a Spitfire. That's all I can decorate with right now.
My Spitfire. My Spit's my favorite. But I'm gonna show this photo. Can you guys see this? Hang on, let me go to the big screen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let me move it on my.
This is the close-up of the Zero pilot. He's like, oh
that's fantastic.
They're on my ass right now.
He's second guessing that kamikaze mission.
Yeah, he is.
Well, there's a great story of what happened on Okinawa. It's actually in Sledge's book, Eugene Sledge, who wrote With the Old Breed, and he's on Okinawa, and they were fighting for like 6 weeks or a month, and they finally got a day off. Like, you guys go back in the rear because their company had just gotten decimated so much, and they just went for a walk. They just had to walk, and you know what I mean. Yeah. So they're walking on top of, in the mountains of Okinawa, on this really high plateaued area, and all of a sudden, a Japanese Zero sees them.
Oh.
And the Zero, it might have been a Zero, it might have been, I think he said it was a Zero. He described it as a Zero. Who knows what kind of plane would say the Zero? The Zero sees them and comes around, and disappears behind a mountain. It's coming around to strafe them.
Yeah.
To kill them. And they're like in the middle of this meadow, this high plateau, meadow. There's no cover. It's all rocky. There's, you know what I mean? There's really nowhere for them to hide. And all of a sudden, they just see the Zero come turning towards them, right? And all of a sudden, it banks sharply to the right and streaks past away from them at the last minute. and all of a sudden, what comes around that mountain is an F4U Corsair hot on his head. This Navy pilot or this Marine pilot saw the zero, and then that zero saw and just beat it out of there, and just
and his eyes got this big, right?
Yeah, got that big, but he saw it. He's like, "Oh my God, it's a zero!" Whispering death. So that's my little. So let me ask you something. Where are you from? Where are you from, Eric? Like you talk about, you went to comic conventions. What was your first comic convention?
I live in Kansas. I'm a humble Midwestern boy. I guess if I say I'm humble, I'm not humble. My first convention, like I said, I'd always been a comic book fan, but I'd never been to cons. I still haven't gone to a convention as a fan. I've only ever tabled. And
really?
My first convention was Planet Comic Con in 2011 in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm. Great show.
That was, a few hours from my house, and it was just an easy drive, and it was a great show. It made a lot of friends in that area, and that's sort of home base convention wise. I haven't been in a few years, but it's a lot bigger now than it used to be.
Oh yeah, it's a monster.
Yeah.
And what's his name? One of my journals, Chris Jackson, who runs it.
Yeah, Chris. Yep.
Great guy. I want to do that show again. I had the best time there. One of my childhood friends, Ellen, lives out there with her family, and we went out to that restaurant Q39, where they're, which is an amazing barbecue place.
It's Kansas City.
Yeah, of course. With their friend zone, and I love it there. It's they call it flyover country, but man, I'll take flyover country over the coast any day. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, me too. So, yeah, we met a lot of good people there. We have friends that live there. Now I have a niece that lives there, so it's going back to Kansas City is definitely on the table.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, let's get down to producing your book right now, Nile. And one of Nile's favorite questions, one of his favorite subjects, which seems to change every time, right? We have different answers every time.
Yes.
But it's really educational, because we are trying to let people make this a learning tool as well. But fire away with your question, Nile.
Yeah, so Eric, I mean, you've done the crowdfunding thing a few times. I mean, what are the mistakes you've learned? Things that, if you had to give the advice to people of what not to do, what do you got?
I'd say the biggest one I've learned it was 2012 and now, basically the same book. The biggest thing I learned is you need to have an audience. That, to me, I think is the most important factor, because I'm starting to learn that more than the product itself, people want to support you as a human, as a person. If they like you, they're more likely to back what you're doing. If you have a presence online and you're entertaining people, and you're doing it for free, if you're on YouTube, putting on a show for people, you're entertaining them for free. Yeah. So some part of them wants to pay you for that, and if you start putting out product, they'll say, okay, I would like to buy that book, or I would like to buy that beer koozie, or whatever it is that you end up doing. So I think ultimately that, to me, is the biggest thing that I have learned, is just get yourself out there and build that audience. Because the way I see it, the bigger my audience is, the bigger the campaign's going to be, just because more people know about it. It's my whole thing right now is, I know that this campaign would be far beyond where it is. I'm very honored and blessed that it even broke 10,000. To me, that's even strange to say, because the last time I did a book, it made $1,000. But it's basically just, if I know that people will be interested if they just hear about it, and they just haven't heard about it. So getting your name out there, I think, is probably one of the most important things.
So you're active on Twitter and Instagram and to let people know what you're doing, that sort of thing.
Yep. I'm on Twitter and Facebook. I have Instagram-ish. I let that one. There's always one or two that sort of like, it's hard to keep up on everything.
Yeah.
Nobody is Elliot Fernandez, except him. But yeah, I'm on YouTube, and I do like I'm trying to do a daily live stream. It's figuring out the schedule for that is troublesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And when it comes down to deadline mode for lettering and getting books done, that can change. But usually around the 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock range for an hour or two, central, is when I try to go live, and I'll just sort of talk. Today I had Brian Shearer on for just a few minutes before his family got home, and we just hung out and talked for a bit, just sort of joked around and had some fun. And every once in a while, I will letter a little bit when it's something that I can show. And I get questions from the chat like, how does that work? I get a lot of lettering questions. I feel like I field on the show, which is great because I think it's a very unknown part of the creation process. And everybody's like, writing and drawing and then coloring and then, oh, what's that lettering stuff? That's not that important. But I feel like I'm able to just sort of let people into that world a little bit. And
I mean, you're not without lettering, you're not going to have comics.
Yeah.
And like we point to put our letterers on the cover of our books.
Well, I appreciate that as one myself.
And everyone should do that. All you guys out there, think of it as a team.
Yeah.
This team Flying Fortress, this is their 10-man crew, a crew,
right.
the crew of Flying Fortress, which is kind of all you, it seems. But even
not all me, no.
Yeah, but your other books and stuff, and give some love to the letterers. I remember colorists weren't on covers and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, really? Oh my gosh! They do so much work.
It seems just recently too that change is being made, and you start seeing it now a little bit more and more that you get letters credit on the cover.
Well, I started using letters on the cover now. Back in the day, we didn't, because a lot of times I was doing the lettering myself, printing, doing on the computer, and I never hand lettered. I tried it and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Computer and cut them out and glue the word balloons in and things like that. But we always, from issue 1, we had our colorists on, always.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
It seems like I know you've done a lot of stuff with Cautionary Comics. Seems like they seem to put the whole team on the covers. And I was talking to when I was talking about it, I was like, Eric Weathers, is that the same Eric Weathers that does the Flying Fortress? And he's like, yeah.
That's the guy.
Yeah.
That's me. So
I mean, they do a good job, I think, promoting the whole team on their books with that growing publication there. So I had a couple questions from here. A couple of guys want to know, seeing that the Flying Fortress, right? It took 8 years in the making. I mean, is this also, categorizing or cataloging, your evolution as an artist?
Yeah, big time. We did an ash can, and I started drawing at the tail end of 2010. It's gonna be in the book. It's sort of like it's not even really a prequel. It's not like a zero. I mean, we named it as a number 0. That was the book that we put together to do something for the show, for the convention, and it was just an 8-page story. And at the time, I was going for a certain style of art that was not, I would say, in my wheelhouse. So it turned out not great. But issues 1 through 8, there is this massive change in quality of art, from even just storytelling, character drawing. The planes get better. Everything I feel is pacing. I learned, you learn about page turns halfway through making your story.
Yeah.
That important stuff that you don't think about, and then you realize, oh wait, this is important. So we had even gone back and made adjustments for print. We had to shift a page over or add a credits page in the middle so that page turns would work out right. But artistically, yes, there is definitely an evolution. You're going to see the growth of young, early 20s Eric Weathers to grizzled late 20s, early 30s me artistically. So and art is ever growing, and you're hopefully you're always getting better. And in the future, you're going to be looking back at this book and thinking, wow, now look at this new one. And, I want to see that and say, man, I've really come a long way.
And it's a great feeling. It really is, to progress and to, you see some people and, they're big names or whatever. And I mean, their art hasn't changed in 25, years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'm not crazy about that personally. I love the whole progression as well. But
yeah. I think it's fun to try different styles. And
as a fan, like either it seems like either they're happy with their wheelhouse and that's it, and they've accomplished this and it's easy for them and that's that. But I don't know. I love the evolution of artists. I love seeing art. Seeing someone like, whoa, when you open a book like this person.
Yeah.
Crap.
Yeah. It's really fun to look back and just see like of any artist and just watch their growth. Like I mentioned earlier in the show that I was following Jim Lee. I went back and like did back catalog stuff, and I have like his early Alpha Flight stuff. And then there was just like this big jump for him. And that was one of those like, okay, if he did it, I can do it. That was one of my motivators, is seeing an artist's early work when you're struggling. That can be a game changer for you, because you can say, well, that's not very good, and look at where they are now. Obviously, it's doable.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And then AML asks, will Flying Fortress be its own universe, and would you plan on having any crossovers happen?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess I could cross over. They do open up portals to alternate dimensions. I mean, what's a better way to cross over than alternate dimensions?
Yeah.
So, I mean, why not? I mean, it's possible. If somebody wanted to do a crossover with Flying Fortress, I mean, we might be able to work something out.
You are willing to learn.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then Mopsy asked, do you prefer hand or digital lettering?
Well, I don't hand letter. I would like to learn it, but that seems like a lifetime of practice. In terms of looking at what I prefer to read, I just prefer good lettering.
Yeah.
For me, you can go back to any decade, and there are letterers that stand out above the rest. And some of them, they will bring their own touch in different ways. Whether it's obviously in the hand lettering days, that was apparent in the way they wrote, because that was their hand putting a pen to paper. And you don't have that as much these days, unless somebody's made their own font that they use, exclusively or something. You don't have that. So these days you see it more in like balloon shape in the way they use the balloon tails. And that's sort of where the artistry and the individualism per creator, per letterer comes in.
Yeah.
So for me, I love both. It's all I see now. It's the first thing I see now is lettering. It used to be like, wow, look at this great splash page. But now it's like, I think I would have moved that balloon over here, because it's kind of covering up his arm there. But yeah, I think I can enjoy both.
Oh, all right.
Nice. All right.
Is that the safe answer?
Yeah, that's the safe answer. That's great.
I think it might be time to have a little fun now. What do you think? We like to ask some stupid questions.
Yeah. Oh boy,
because we're curious.
And I'm gonna go with my classic, my all-time favorite. Eric, do you believe in UFOs, ghosts, or Bigfoot?
UFOs, yes. Bigfoot, maybe. Ghosts, no.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we got so many different answers. This is great. Now, why maybe UFOs? I mean, why maybe Bigfoot? Are you familiar with the Patterson film, and do you think that that's a farce?
No, I think that's I don't know. There do seem to be enough of the lore through different cultures and time that just seem. There's the skunk ape and the abominable snowman and all of these different. They're all basically pointing to the same creature, I think. And I believe it's John Lithgow's sidekick from Harry and the Hendersons.
There you go.
all right, my friend, without getting too personal or something that's too sad or anything,
Okay.
but what's like the scariest experience you've ever had in your life?
Scariest experience.
And please, like, not that you saw a dog get hit by a car or something like that.
Not walking into my parents, right?
Yeah, I actually.
Well, give us some details first.
Yeah. No, there was I used to have this recurring nightmare that freaked me out. So there would be this. So I'm in the house I grew up in, and there was this machine in a doorway. There was like a doorway from the dining room to the living room, and there was this machine there. And for some reason, it was powered by frogs. I don't understand that. It's a dream, right? But there was a thing that was like, if you looked at it, you would die.
Oh my.
So I would be in this dream like, I need to get through the door. I can't look at this thing. I don't want to touch it. And it would freak me out. And then I would start screaming in my dream. And I know no sound came out. So I was just screaming as loud. I was trying to scream as hard as I could, and nothing would come out. And then eventually, like, the dream sort of turned into reality, and I would just start screaming, "Mom, Mom!" I'm sure they enjoyed. That was probably their most frightening experience.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that dream, I don't have it anymore, but it's there. It's
there,
burned into my memory forever.
That's
the first thing that came to mind as far as scariest. So I don't get scared easily.
So
manly man. You scared.
That's crazy. Isn't it nuts though how you get those things? Have you ever had those dreams, man, where you just like it just felt so real? Like I actually have like a UFO dream that I swear was just like everything was just too real. Like the temperature, the moisture in the air. And it wasn't like I was abducted or anything, but this dream is the only dream I have that's just so vivid. And it seems like that's what you have as well. It's just a very vivid dream that
I had a disappointing dream once where I was in kindergarten, and all I cared about in kindergarten was the Ninja Turtles. And I didn't have all the figures at the time. There you go. Nice shirt you got there. I had this dream where it was like Christmas morning, and I'm unwrapping all of these gifts, and I hold up. It's Michelangelo, and he was my favorite at the time. I was holding it up. I was like so happy I got Michelangelo. And I wake up, and my hands are in the air in front of me, and laying in my bed. And I was like, oh, no, it's not real. I was so disappointed.
I had a very similar one as well, except do you remember when Nintendo used to do they were like video game watches?
Yeah.
So I always wanted the Super Mario one, and I had a dream I got that, and I was so disappointed when I woke up. And it was like I got up because I remember too, like I put it on my little desk in the room and I went to bed and I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna get it, and it wasn't there. I was like,
somebody stole it.
It wasn't real.
Wow. You know, my dream is that I had one like that, and I literally was in a C-47 about to parachute into Normandy on D-Day, and my alarm clock went off right before we were supposed to exit the door. And that was my freaking thing. You guys are talking about toys.
It's a different era.
It's a different era,
yeah.
You guys you're like 91, Billy? What are you?
Feeling my age.
Yeah. But hey, I actually, since Eric, you're I'll say newer to the industry, it's been you've been in it for a few years now and what have you. I mean, what's your take on the industry? We've got, kind of a divide going on. We've got
a little bit.
Comicsgate creators, non-Comicsgate creators. If you don't mind me asking, I mean, what's your take on everything, and where do you see the future going?
Well, it's a bit crazy right now. I never really have. I follow artists.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like industry, for me, it was always, what's Jim Lee doing? What's Greg Capullo doing? What's Ryan Otley doing? What's, all of these guys, what's Lionel Yu doing? Like I had all these guys that I never was like, I got to read the next X-Men because I want to know what happens. I was always like, I got to get the next X-Men because I want to see the new drawings. For me, it was always about the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's cool.
So for me, the industry has really kind of gone downhill in that point, mainstream wise. Now there are some mainstays, obviously, but some of this mainstream stuff was very not great.
Yeah.
And I had sort of gotten out of comics for a while. After I finished Flying Fortress, I went in and I was like, I still got to create, but I was kind of done with comics for a while, and I started painting. So I was out of it for a while, and I come back, and everything was different. And just in a couple of years, everything sort of got to the point where I was like, I could work at Marvel now. That's not a good it's not a good look for the industry.
Yeah.
Because there was a certain standard that I was used to, and it's I feel like that you see that now more in the indie scene. I mean, they're the big guys there still doing their thing, but it's not as it doesn't seem as important to the companies as it used to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're 100% right. I couldn't agree with you more, my friend.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up though, so it seems like, were you really more geared towards the Marvel comics than DC, or did you?
Yeah, Marvel for me was yeah. I never really grew up at all watching or reading anything DC. Most of what I had seen was Batman the Animated Series. So. Yeah, and then basically all the comics I got were Spider-Man or X-Men, or my first comic was the Frank Miller Wolverine.
Yep.
My mom's boss gave it to me because I was drawing. Mom had my drawings on her desk at work or something. And he was like, "Hey, your son likes comic book stuff. Here, he can have this." So yeah, it was always Marvel for me.
Yeah. So what about like crowdfunding? I mean, you and I were talking a little bit, before we went live, and I mean, we were just talking. It's awesome to see, like, there's so many great crowdfunding projects going on. Just creators taking a lot of stuff in your hands. I mean, into their own hands. I mean, say what you want to say about certain sides of the fence, but there's some creators really pushing it and really coming up with some great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild out there right now. It's like I just want to see what. Now I am interested in the stories, and the people. It's like, oh, this guy's doing something. Hey, what's Ethan got? This is kind of cool. What? Oh, he's working with who's, you learn about so many people these days. It's hard to keep track, but luckily you can track those things on Indiegogo pretty easily, because there's a lot of great campaigns out there that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of several of them, but just even being able to be a backer and a fan, it's just a great time right now, I think. Outside of the mainstream, it
really is, and it's growing. It's really growing.
Yeah.
And, the whole thing with the digital thing worried people, but, and who knows if it keeps growing, the digital, people getting digital books, but people love comics. They love to hold a comic book, you know what I mean, in their hand. They love to just and have that book and to read it, and there's nothing like it, and there's nothing like having someone reading your book, you know what I mean, or coming up
beautiful
with the book you created or worked on, and asking you to sign it, and you're like, I'll sign that.
Yeah, heck yeah. I mean, you do shows, and somebody would come by your book, and they then you'd ask, by the way, do you want it signed? And they're like, well, how much? I'm like, no, don't ask that. It's free. And they're blown away. I guess it was news to me that people will charge for that stuff, but you buying it is enough for me. Like, that's a big deal, especially for an indie creator to have somebody say, this is good, and then to come back the next year waiting for the next issue. That's even better. Yeah. Because then you're like, oh, I got him now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, man.
And then they say thank you after you sign it. You're like, oh, no, thank you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Believe me, thank you. Well, I got to tell you, you're a great, great guest. And as you could attest, someone gave us I was going to say that you were our first person that we had that there was no dislikes, and I just looked at, and someone just snuck in. I don't know how you can sneak in and give Eric a dislike. We got one dislike.
It's just
one enemy.
It's our little
troll.
Tell
us why to give us a dislike. If you're out there, you coward.
We needed you to fill out a survey.
Yeah.
Maybe we should. Stop.
So we've got some great shout outs tonight, Billy and Eric. One, if I may jump into, we've got the Offworlder. Now, this is by Cautionary Comics.
Yeah.
And Eric, I would say you have a little hand in this?
Just a tiny bit. I'll be lettering this book for Ben and the team at Cautionary. Also, I put together the campaign graphics on the side there, the perks. I did that for Ben as well, and the video. I did the video too.
Oh, you did. So why don't we jump into that, guys? We're gonna check out the INDIEGOGO campaign video for Offworlder, the Protectors of Sarah.
7th century, Scotland. Henry Gunn leads his clan in a ferocious battle with Viking invaders. But with victory in sight, he is ripped from space and time by an alien race. The Anunnaki seek a champion to stop an evil alien race from conquering all known space. The fate of the universe rests on the shoulders of a troubled demigod they call Offworlder.
All right.
Nice.
So, and you put that video together as well.
Yes, I did.
Awesome.
Yeah, I do the videos for Ben. I do some graphics here and there, small stuff, and of course all the lettering.
Awesome. So
Excellent.
when are you gonna get your hands on this bad boy to start lettering?
I've only seen a handful of pages, and I haven't seen the script yet, so I'm not sure. It may be one of those we'll wait for the campaign to get funded sort of situations.
Yep.
So I haven't talked to him about that yet. I think Florida Man's coming soon too, and I think I might be lettering that first. I'm not sure how that. Oh, I guess this is now. We'll see. I don't know. I don't have all the details behind the scenes at Cautionary, so.
It seems like they're like, "Hey, Eric," and you're like, "Okay." You're going to be involved in it.
Maybe a little bit like that, yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. If you get a chance, check out Offworlder from Cautionary Comics. Eric will be lettering this beautiful book, and this is brought to you by our friends over at Cautionary Comics. We've had Ben on the show. We've had Mike Barron, Chuck Dixon, all a part of this. And I think this one is written by Ben and Mike, correct? Mike Barron?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to get them back on the show to promote this beauty in a couple weeks. And then, guys, we got another crowdfunding call tonight. This one's a Kickstarter. Impossible Jones, Grin and Gritty, a graphic novel. This comes to you guys with something Billy and I were looking at, and he had brought it up. So let's check out this video.
Jones is a thief who gets powers and then is mistaken for a superhero and then decides to run with it. Why not? Comes with some great perks.
Yeah, that's right. I am a superhero.
It's Harley Quinn meets Plastic Man in the Marvel Universe. Kinda. It's fast-paced, fun, frenetic, and beautifully drawn by my partner in crime, David. I like Harley Quinn, especially my writing on the first Harley Quinn monthly series. I think you're going to like Impossible Jones. She's impulsive, unpredictable, energetic, but I think she's smarter than Harley. I first thought of Impossible Jones as a comic book. That's my training, after all. And I even tried to kickstart it that way. But I pulled the plug because you know what? Impossible Jones is a graphic novel. It always was, always should have been. And that's what I'm kickstarting now. And not just any graphic novel. This is an ultra-cool collector's edition graphic novel. Hardcover, oversized, pin-ups, behind-the-scene scenes. Hardcover, oversized, pin-ups, behind-the-scenes stuff. Everything you could want. And that's what's important. This doesn't happen without you. Without your support. Only you can make Impossible Jones possible. And making the impossible possible, well, that's what comics is all about.
I'm just trying to get by. Is that a crime?
Thanks for supporting my dad's Kickstarter. Period.
Don't listen to her.
Using kids to sell. That's a way to go. All right, guys. What's that?
Carl, I actually sent Carl a friend request today, and he accepted my friend request. I'm a huge fan of his. Yeah. And I saw him at the at Heroes Con, but every time I went by, he had 2 or 3 people that he was just talking to real intently. So I'm like, oh, I'll come by and see him. But I just, the show just got so gosh darn busy. But hopefully he'll agree to come on our show as well.
All right. And do you have any future conventions or anything coming up, Eric?
The only thing I have on my schedule right now is Air Capital Comic Con in Wichita, Kansas.
All right. Well, if you happen to want to attend Baltimore Comic Con, we will be doing ScotchCon.
Yes.
Okay.
And that will be Saturday night, I believe. It'll probably be Friday night and Saturday night.
Yeah. And morning and lunchtime and
yeah.
Yep.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, I think your Midwestern flyover country aura has prevailed because the person who gave us gave you or us it's probably us, I'm sure, a dislike has rescinded that dislike.
Oh.
And you are 44-0. You are like the Reggie Jackson and of crowdfunding, and we thank you for that. And you're just a great guest. You're incredibly impressive young man, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, and hopefully next year I'll be at the Planet Comic Con, and you'll make your way there as well, and we can drink, laugh, and be merry.
Yes, let's have some scotch and some cigars and have a good time.
Indeed. So how do we do this? Can we
So Eric, how can everyone get a hold of you? How can they stay in touch with you?
Well, my phone number is
we'll post that
on
in
Twitter.
The comments.
On Twitter, I'm at Eric_Weathers. And on YouTube, I'm at Eric Weathers. Eric Weathers on YouTube. Yeah. And Flying Fortress on Indiegogo.
Yes, Flying Fortress on Indiegogo. And please, guys, check it out. If you guys can share it. If you can pledge, all the better, obviously. But if you can't, if you're not in a position to pledge, at least share it with your friends on social media. And,
Yeah, we have I have something about sharing the campaign. We do have a referral contest going on for the length of the campaign. And whoever has the top 10 referrals are going to get original art for free.
Wow.
So there's a tier. If you go into the updates, it's like update number 2. There's a tiered system. So 7 to 10, you get a penciled page and a 9x12 commission. 4 to 6 or 6 to 4, you get an inked page or an 11x17 commission. 3 to 2, you get an inked page and an 11x17 commission, and whoever's top dog gets an inked page, a penciled page, and an 11x17 commission. That's my way of awesome. I'm hiring a marketing department and giving them free art.
Great idea. I mean, I'd like to steal that idea too.
Go for it.
Write it down. He stole some of your ideas. No.
We call it. What do we call it? The Weathers Connection. What do we call it?
The Weathers Connection.
Are you weathering? And what do you mean? What are you doing? The weathers, or the weathers analgram, or we have to have some kind of cool.
I've had trouble my entire life coming up with a cool thing to put weathers to. So my live show is just called The Forecast because it's the closest I can do to weather. It's either that or just say throw the name, put the name Carl in front of it, and then you've got a real statue of a human being. So as far as I know, no relation, but I'll still claim him as a cousin.
Someone asked if you were related to him.
Yeah.
Well.
All right.
Yeah, cool out of the box idea. The Mob Seat, our pal, the Mob Seat. And I got to tell you guys, all of you guys out there watching us, I'm seeing names that I'm starting to really recognize these names. and I met someone, one of our followers this week, our subscribers this weekend, and it was great. It was like, hey, give me a hug, and it was a lot of fun. So
Awesome.
actually, met a couple of them in person. So, well, thank you so much. We're almost at an hour and a half. So I got to get back to work too. I got to do this cover, and I'm sure you got some work to do.
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, well, guys, we may be on tomorrow night. We're just waiting for some verification on. So we might have Joe Sinnott on tomorrow night to talk some classic comic books. A titan in his own right. We'll definitely be on Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time with Anthony Delaney. He is a creator in his own right. He is also a comic printer. So if you guys have questions or want to get your crowdfunded comic printed, he is becoming the man. Everyone and anyone who is in the crowdfunding and beyond is using him for his printing company. High quality products, doing some great stuff. Billy can attest to it. And his creator-owned comic, The Changeling, I believe is up to issue 5 or 6. So he is a crowdfunding guru in his own right.
Excellent.
All right.
And yes, again, my friend, so great to meet you, Eric.
I had a lot of fun.
I'd like to work with you someday as well. Hopefully we will. I'm sure we will. And I just, keep kicking ass, bro.
You do the same, man.
Yeah,
and if anyone's in Long Island, Eternal Con is this weekend, 22nd and 23rd. Billy will be attending amongst some other great artists and creators. So if you're in Long Island, live on Long Island in the tri-state area, and want to spend a good time at a weekend,
I'll even be having
Billy.
a crowdfunding comics panel.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And we
panel?
have one in San Diego as well, and hopefully Baltimore I'll do one, and Terrificon. That's
New York,
that's our goal,
maybe.
is to start having like live panels, because I just love this. I get so much out of this. Talking to people like you. I mean, like I said, it's inspiring talking to new creators, or even older creators, but just to have a nice dialogue with one another over a beer and talking comics and how we can change the world. I think it's pretty great.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Excellent, my friends. Eric, thank you so much, Billy. Another great episode. I look forward to being back on the air with you again tomorrow night and Thursday. And yes, sir.
Nile, call Jimmy T about Joe Sinnott. He said he'll help us out with it.
All right, I'll give Jim a call.
All right.
All right,
you,
everyone. Thanks
Eric.
again. We'll see you soon. And as always, keep crowdfunding, America.
Keep crowdfunding.
Keep crowdfunding.
It's the American way.
Yeah, Nazis. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning into Crowdfunding Comics. We look forward to hanging out with all of our crowdfunding fans every time we go live. And don't forget to click the link below and subscribe to our channel. And there's a little bell. You may want to hit that too. This way you get all the great notifications when we go live and when we upload some awesome content. You want to follow us? Sure, go right ahead at Twitter at CrowdFundComics with an X, Instagram, Crowdfunding Comics, and Facebook at Crowdfunding Comics. Till next time, crowdfunding fans, we'll see you soon.